Today, an ad issue for teens. Never too young to save the planet.
I got the training actually when I was about 11 or so I've been giving presentations since I was 10.
That's ad issue today. Welcome to Ad Issue for Teens. I'm Kevin O'Keefe. So you might be watching me on your TV, online, maybe even on your cell phone. Ever think about how much electricity you're using? Do you care? Well, a lot of you do. In a few moments, Karina Serrade will be here. At 13, she's the youngest person in the world to present Al Gore's environmental workshop, An Inconvenient Truth. She's just one of the stories Patrick Hickey has found us. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
Thank you.
I understand the thing that impressed me, I guess, about some of the guests you found for today's show is how young they are and how remarkable their success is. For example, I think one guest got the attention of U.S. President Barack Obama with her work.
Yes, that's a young lady named Joe Lambert, who had decided when she was 14 that she wanted to do something really good for her gold project as a Girl Scout, but she had no idea that within 2 years, it would be a worldwide environmental sensation.
What did she do?
She wanted to create an environmental education center for the Girl Scouts at her camp, but she just didn't want any old building. She wanted the most ecologically sound, ecologically sustainable building you could think of.
This is a 14-year-old.
Yes.
Wow.
But being from West Texas, where there's not a lot of support or resources for these sorts of things, she was pretty much on her own, and she single-handedly was able to raise 1,200 volunteers and thousands of dollars to build what became the Lorax Lodge. And the Lorax Lodge is a first in many regards. It's the first Girl Scout building in the whole world that's completely ecologically sustainable. Wow. It's the first environmental education center of its kind in the South Plains region of the United States. And it became a veritable prototype due to the construction techniques used to make the green technology. So all said and done, it was a pretty good gold project because it got an audience on the White House lawn with President Obama.
Now, I guess one of the things, another, stereotype that was broken for me in the research you did was the idea, I always thought environmentalists lived in the country and experienced nature, but you found a lot of people living in the city, and especially public housing, which you don't think is a big environmental hotbed, but you found people from that region as well.
Yeah, it's easy to forget, surrounded by high-rises and freeways, about where nature is. But a group called the Green Collar Corps of young tenants of the Toronto Community Housing want to remind us that Mother Nature is as much at home, if not more, here in the concrete jungle, so to speak. Because human beings essentially are urban dwellers, and it's human impact that's creating what we know as climate change.
That's happening more in the city than in the country.
Exactly.
So if anyone should be paying attention, it's people in the city.
So what's remarkable about this group is that they want to remind us that essentially the front line in climate change isn't somewhere in the Arctic or in the oceans, it's right here in the inner city.
Right.
And so what they do is they go out through the housing complexes in the buildings and everywhere within the inner city to promote a green awareness through education campaigns, recycling trade shows, and even just planting gardens. And they're a really remarkable group of young people.
Now, Karina Serda, who I mentioned in the introduction, 13 years old. Who exactly is Karina?
Well, Karina, I don't know. She's possibly one of the most amazing environmentalists you could probably think of. I mean, she was 11 years of age. She was already presenting Al Gore's presentation impromptu because her mother, Victoria, had been one of the first Canadians trained in it. But I think Karina's passion for it would make even the hardest core Greenpeacer blush. Right. Just as an example, once she got the training from Al Gore at 13 years of age, the youngest person of all time, she's become one of the most prolific presenters ever. And just to give you an example, last Earth Week, she presented for something like 8,000 high school kids in just 4 days.
Wow. Well, thank you very much for that. Up next, in the last 2 years, Karina Serda has presented Al Gore's environmental workshop, An Inconvenient Truth, to over 35,000 people. Take a look.
My name is Karina Serda. So I got the training actually when I was about 11 or so I've been giving presentations since I was 10. Just a couple of quick facts in there. I'm just going to be doing a general overview of climate change, giving you the science, consequences, then the solutions, and actions that you guys can do. I'll try to keep it short, I promise. I've spoken to crowds where I've spoken to a lot of high schools, and I know that it gets pretty boring after about half an hour, even sometimes 15 minutes. So, so I'll be short with the climate science especially.
And joining me in the studio is Karina Serda. Welcome to the show, Karina. Tell me when you saw Al Gore's, and first of all, why did you want to see Al Gore's film? You were 11 at the time, or 10 when you first saw it?
I actually didn't see the film the first time, but my mom saw the film, and I've been an environmentalist for years, and so has my mom. But when she saw the film, she really wanted to be able to make a difference. So she actually. At that time, I believe they had opened the application online to become a presenter, but it was only for the U.S. So, but there were 20 Canadians trained in the American training, and she was one of those. Yeah. So, and then I did the solutions part afterwards.
And had you seen the film at this point?
No, actually.
Really?
Still.
Wow. Why didn't you see the film? Your
I don't know.
mom didn't want you to?
No, well, the first time she didn't want me to because I was like 10-ish, so she didn't want me to get like really scared by the film, but I've seen Al Gore present, but I haven't actually seen the film itself, I must admit.
Well, when you first saw Al Gore present, what did you think?
It was really amazing. It was like mind-blowing. It was so empowering, but also so depressing in a way.
Well, that's my point, is that there's some people watching right now that would say a 13-year-old girl should not be concerned with climate change and the environment. You should be at the shopping mall with all your other friends or something. How would you answer that people say that this is too serious and depressing an issue for a young person?
I don't think that any issues should be considered really too depressing, because it is going to be our world with the environment. It's like, then who would be making the decisions on that? Like the people who really aren't going to necessarily be around to see all the major changes.
You're the one that's going to be around.
Yeah.
You said you found it depressing, but you also found it inspiring. What inspired you about the workshop?
I don't know. There was just so much about it that was inspiring. You can't really necessarily pin down a specific part of it. Especially, I recently went down to get the solutions training from him down in Nashville. It was this summer, and it was really cool to see all the solutions in there, because the original Inconvenient Truth is a lot more depressing because it doesn't have the solutions angle on it. There's a bit of a hopeful message at the end, but it's mainly like science and consequences parts of it, whereas this new solutions slideshow is, a good part of it at least is solutions. So it was really cool to see that.
And I want to ask you a bit about the solutions, because is that not how you got started, was working with your mom's presentation? Yeah. Tell me a bit about that, how you first started presenting.
When my mom went down to get the training, I went down with my grandpa, but we didn't actually go to the training, we just went and looked around Nashville. But all the way there, and all the way back, I think, in the car, I bugged her to be able to do something about this. And she finally said, you know what, Karina, if you make up your own slideshow and you learn how to present and you learn how to use Keynote, which is the Mac form of PowerPoint. So, and then, so about a week later or so, I had made up 10 solutions, I believe, at that time, around climate change to.
So you would present at the end of your mom's workshop the solutions portion. What was that experience like, presenting that?
It was really cool.
You really liked it?
It was really fun because I got to give the hopeful message, and my mom got to talk about all the doom and gloom stuff. So, it's fun giving the whole presentation too. But
well, speaking of giving the whole presentation, you went to get the training from Al Gore eventually yourself.
Yep.
How did that come about? How did you go get the training?
With my mom giving the solutions presentation, we gave about 90 presentations in 1 year, and about 100 by the time Al Gore was going to come to Canada to train. I think they ended up training 260 some presenters. So, and I just applied online, and they accepted my application because I'd already done so many presentations, and I actually by that point somewhat knew the content itself pretty well from seeing my mom present. So.
And they weren't at all concerned about your age. You were 11 at the time. 11 years old.
I think I was 11. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
I was almost 12, but.
Almost 12. Do you remember presenting it for the first time? What was that experience like?
It was pretty difficult, but it was also pretty fun in a way because at least I already somewhat knew the content itself. So it wasn't as, I guess, scary as if I didn't know the content at all. But it was quite nerve-wracking. But I don't remember it so well because I've given so many presentations. They all, to a certain extent, blur together at some point. So,
how do your friends react to the work that you do? What do they think about it?
Well, I've only got a couple of really close friends, and my one friend who lives up in the peninsula, she's already an environmentalist, and her family are. Then my other friend that I hang out with a lot. She thinks it's really cool that I do these presentations.
Do you ever have people that aren't supportive when you give the workshop, that challenge you or don't believe that global warming is a concern?
They don't tell me that per se, but I've seen them tell my mom that. And I've also had teachers come up to me after presentations and be like, you should have controlled the crowd more. At our school, we have a policy where you have to just stand there until the kids quiet down. And I'm like, how am I expected to know that? But I don't know. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't get that much criticism from it, I suppose. But
can you give me sort of the key points that, just sort of very briefly, the outline of what you're sort of presenting when you do the presentation? What are the key elements that you're telling people about?
Well, I'm explaining about the science, of course, first, and then there's a portion about the consequences, things like all the stuff that's going to be happening to the world with this and the stuff that's already happened to the world around climate change. And then I finish off with solutions of my own, the Inconvenient Truth one. And I don't know if that really...
Do you think you answered the question. Very good. Do you think your age is an advantage or disadvantage?
I think in some cases it's an advantage, in some cases it's a disadvantage, but how is it an advantage? Well, I find that people who are older than me will listen to me more than people who are, people who are younger than me will listen to me too, but people who are my own age, I don't think listen to me quite as much because I don't know, I've given presentations, I find that when I give presentations to people my own age, they're not as receptive to the information.
Really?
But even other other age groups of high school students, they tend to be quite receptive to it, or adults or kids who are younger than me. But I don't know about
your own peers.
Yeah,
sometimes a little turned off. Yeah. And you said it's also a disadvantage. How does your age is a disadvantage?
I don't have the world experience as other people do, and I also don't know how much people will listen to me sometimes because of my age part of the time, but I like to think it's more of an advantage than a disadvantage. But.
What does your mom think about the work you do?
I don't know. She thinks it's really cool, but I don't really know.
Has she ever talked to you about it? About what the presentations you give, what her feelings are?
Well, every presentation I give, she's there.
Really?
Pretty much, because she has to drive me places. Right? So,
she never gets tired of listening to you.
She keeps telling me I've become the chauffeur. People don't invite me to speak anymore. It's just like you, and then I'm just.
She's the wind beneath your wings. Well, I want you to stay right there because we're going to bring your mom out in a few minutes and ask her for herself what she thinks. Okay? Well, when we return, Karina's mom, Victoria, on what it's like to live with such a dedicated environmentalist. Stay tuned.